My family only reached out to ask for money, so I donated everything to charity and watched them complain on Facebook. I'm a 34-year-old guy, and for most of my life, my family treated me like an ATM that hadn't started printing yet. I was the middle child, the filler between my parents' golden boy and their precious little princess. My brother Ryan could do no wrong. He got average grades, but somehow he was so smart. My sister Claire could throw a tantrum and break things, and my parents would rush to comfort her. But if I so much as questioned anything, I was disrespectful or ungrateful. Our house always felt like a stage. My parents were obsessed with how we looked to others. If Ryan won a participation trophy, they'd throw a family dinner to celebrate. When Claire got her first job at a boutique, Mom wrote a Facebook post about how proud she was. When I got into community college with a partial scholarship, the only thing my dad said was, "Couldn't you try harder and get a full one?" I remember standing there with the acceptance letter in my hand, pretending his words didn't sting. Dinner conversations were the worst. My parents would ask Ryan about his big future or compliment Claire's looks, and then look at me like I was an inconvenience. Once, I tried to talk about a small app I was building for fun, and my mom cut me off mid-sentence. "You and your silly computer stuff. Be more like your brother, he's practical." The older I got, the more invisible I felt. It wasn't even anger anymore, just numbness. When I turned 18, I packed a single suitcase, told them I was leaving, and walked out. My mom didn't ask where I was going. My dad didn't try to stop me. The only thing I heard as I closed the door was Ryan asking if he could have my old laptop. That was the night I decided. If they wouldn't see my worth, I'd build something they couldn't ignore. When I left home at 18, I had nothing, no savings, no backup plan, not even a proper goodbye. I moved to a small city 3 hours away and rented a room in a decaying old building that smelled like cigarette smoke and broken promises. The walls were thin enough that I could hear my neighbor's TV every night, and the mattress I bought off Craigslist had a spring that jabbed my back whenever I turned. But that tiny, miserable space was mine, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. I juggled 2 part-time jobs while taking community college classes during the day. I stocked shelves at a grocery store, delivered food on my old bike, and coded websites for local businesses at night. Sometimes I slept 3 hours before heading back out. My body ached constantly, but I told myself pain was better than depending on people who only saw me as a burden. My parents didn't call. Not once. When I texted my mom to let her know I was okay, she replied 2 days later with a thumbs-up emoji. That was the last message I got from her for almost a year. Meanwhile, I'd see her posting about Ryan's new job and Claire's vacation photos with captions like, "So proud of my beautiful children." I used to stare at those posts in silence, wondering if she even remembered she had 3 kids. Still, I kept pushing. I taught myself programming from YouTube videos and free courses. Every rejection email from companies became fuel. I remember sitting in that freezing room one winter night, my laptop on my knees, whispering to myself, "One day, they'll wish they'd believed in me." I didn't know how or when, but I was determined to make it happen. It took nearly 7 years of grinding before anything truly shifted. I was 25, barely keeping up with rent, and surviving on instant noodles when I landed a freelance contract to build a small e-commerce website. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid more than anything I'd done before. That project snowballed into referrals, then repeat clients, and before I knew it, I was drowning in work. Not because I was cheap, but because I was good. One night I stared at my laptop screen and thought, why am I doing this for everyone else? That's when the idea for my own platform hit me. A streamlined marketplace that helped small local stores sell online without the usual chaos. I spent every spare hour coding, sleeping on the floor beside my desk. When the prototype launched, I expected maybe a handful of users. Instead, within 3 months, hundreds of shops signed up. By the end of the year, I had investors reaching out, asking for meetings I couldn't believe were real. I remember getting my first major funding offer. My hands shook so badly that I had to set the phone down. The kid who used to be called a waste of potential had just built something worth 7 figures. I sat in silence for a long time that night. No cheering, no music, just quiet disbelief and the faint hum of my computer fan. When the local paper did a small feature on my startup, my inbox flooded with congratulations from old classmates, former bosses, even random relatives I hadn't heard from in years. But one message stood out. "Proud of you, son. We always knew you had it in you." It was from my dad. I stared at it for a long time, realizing something chilling. They hadn't reached out because they missed me. They reached out because they'd finally found a reason to. A few months after that message, my mom called out of the blue. Her voice was syrupy sweet, like someone trying too hard to sound warm. "We've missed you, honey. Your father and I were just saying how long it's been." I almost laughed. 7 years of silence, and suddenly I was honey again. She invited me to come home for a family dinner, saying everyone would love to see me. Against my better judgment, I said yes. Some part of me, maybe the same part that still craved approval, wanted to believe they'd changed. When I walked into that old house, nothing had changed. The same photos of Ryan in his graduation cap hung proudly on the wall. Claire's high school portraits still lined the hallway. The only picture of me was a faded one tucked behind a lamp in the living room. Mom hugged me like a politician greeting a donor, while Dad clapped my shoulder and said, "Look at you, Mr. Big Shot." Dinner was awkward at first. Ryan talked nonstop about his new business venture, which, from what I could tell, was just him reselling imported sneakers. Claire complained about how exhausting her life was because she had to babysit her own kids. I tried to talk about my work, but no one seemed interested until Mom said, "So, this company of yours must be doing pretty well, huh?" I could feel their eyes shift toward me, suddenly alert. Ryan leaned in. "Yeah, bro, maybe you could give me some advice. Or, invest in something small to help me get started." Claire followed jokingly. "Don't forget your favorite sister." It wasn't a family dinner, it was a sales pitch. And for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't the outsider anymore. I was the product. After that dinner, the floodgates opened. It started small. My mom calling to say her car suddenly needed new tires, followed by my dad hinting that the roof could use a little work. I helped at first. I told myself it was just being a good son, that maybe giving back would earn me something I'd never had before. Respect. But every favor seemed to invite another. Ryan texted me one evening. "Hey man, small loan, just until my sneaker business picks up. I'll pay you back." He didn't. Then Claire called crying, saying her credit card debt was suffocating her and her husband just didn't understand financial pressure like I did. I wired her money that same night. 2 weeks later, I saw her post a photo from a resort captioned, "Much-needed getaway." The worst part was the tone. They weren't embarrassed or grateful. They acted entitled. When I didn't respond right away, I'd get passive-aggressive texts like, "Must be nice forgetting about family now that you're rich." Even my parents joined in, sending messages like, "We sacrificed so much for you growing up. The least you could do is help out once in a while." Once in a while had turned into every other week. I remember one afternoon scrolling through Facebook and seeing my sister's post. "So proud of my brother for finally being there for us. Family always comes first." The comments were full of hearts and ahs. Meanwhile, I sat in my office staring at the screen, realizing how they'd twisted it, how they'd turned my generosity into their narrative of control. That night, I turned off my phone and sat alone in the dark, wondering if I'd ever truly escape being their emotional punching bag. I thought cutting ties had freed me, but it felt like I'd just handed them a new leash made of money. It all came crashing down one Sunday evening. My mom called, saying she and Dad wanted to have a family dinner, just like old times. Something in her voice told me it wasn't really optional. Against my instincts, I went. The minute I walked in, I knew something was off. The dining table wasn't set for dinner. It was covered in papers, bills, printouts, even bank statements. My stomach tightened. Dad gestured for me to sit. "We've been talking as a family," he said, his tone oddly formal. "We think it's time we discuss how to manage things fairly now that you're successful." I frowned. "Manage what?" Ryan jumped in, waving a spreadsheet. We listed out everyone's needs. Claire's got credit debt, Mom and Dad have medical stuff, and I need capital for my business. You can easily cover all this, bro. It's not even 1% of what you make." I stared at them, stunned. "You ambushed me. To divide my money?" Mom crossed her arms. "Don't be dramatic. We're family. Family helps each other." The air turned suffocating. Claire chimed in, teary-eyed. "You've been so blessed. Don't you think it's selfish to keep it all to yourself?" Something inside me snapped. For years, I'd begged for love, attention, anything. And now that I had something they wanted, they finally pretended to care. I stood up slowly and said, "You're right. Family helps family. But tell me, where were you when I was sleeping on floors? When I was starving? When I almost gave up?" No one answered. The only sound was the hum of the ceiling fan. I pushed the papers aside, walked toward the door, and said quietly, "You don't want a family. You want a bank." My dad called after me, angry now. "You'll regret this when you're alone." I didn't turn back. I just whispered to myself, I already was. After that night, I cut off all contact. No calls, no texts, no family dinners. I blocked their numbers and filtered every social media notification that had their names attached. For the first few days, it felt like freedom. Pure, weightless silence. But then came the guilt, creeping in like a slow poison. I'd catch myself staring at my phone, half expecting an apology that never came. Instead, the messages arrived in waves. My mom's tone switched between guilt and manipulation. "You've changed, sweetheart. Money's made you cold." My dad's was harsher. "You're proving why we were always worried about your attitude." Claire posted a Facebook status that read, "Some people forget their family the moment they make it." The comments poured in with sympathy for her. Ryan's friends even messaged me saying, "Man, just help your family out. It's not that deep." I realized then, it wasn't just about money. It was about control. They wanted me to feel needed in the exact way that kept me small. So I stopped feeding the cycle. I poured all that energy into something different, something pure. I started a mentorship program for low-income teens who wanted to learn coding. Every time one of them built their first project or landed a scholarship, I felt something heal inside me. For the first time, giving didn't feel like losing. It felt like living. Months passed, and the silence became my peace. My business expanded, my team grew, and I even bought my first house, a quiet place with tall windows and a view of the city lights. Sometimes, though, I'd sit on the balcony at night wondering if my family even missed me, or if they just missed what I could give them. That question haunted me until the day my father called again, breaking the silence I'd fought so hard to protect. When my father's number lit up on my phone, I almost didn't answer. But something about the timing, it was early morning, hours before he'd usually be awake, made me pick up. His voice was somber. "Your Uncle David passed away last night," he said flatly. I hadn't spoken to Uncle David in years, but he was the only relative who'd ever treated me like I mattered. I felt a lump in my throat. Before I could respond, Dad continued, "The family needs your help managing the inheritance. You're good with money, so you can distribute it fairly." My chest tightened. "Distribute it? What do you mean?" "Well," he said casually, "we assume he left something for all of us. You'll just need to handle the legal stuff and make sure everyone gets their share." It sounded rehearsed, like they'd already planned how to split the spoils. When I met with Uncle David's lawyer a few days later, my world tilted. The lawyer slid a sealed envelope across the table. "Your uncle wanted this to go directly to you," he said. Inside was a letter in my uncle's handwriting. "You were the only one who ever worked for what you have. I want you to use this money to make the world better. Don't let greed destroy you like it did this family." Attached was proof that the entire inheritance, every cent, was left to me. I sat there stunned. It wasn't just the money, it was the validation I never got from my parents. My uncle had seen me for who I really was. When word got out, my phone exploded. Mom texted, So, how much did he leave? We'll discuss splitting it later. Claire called crying, Ryan demanded updates, and Dad left a voicemail saying, "You know what's right, son." But for once, I did. And what I planned to do next would make sure none of them ever forgot it. For 3 days, I didn't respond to a single message. My family group chat turned into chaos. Mom accused me of being secretive, Ryan sent. Screenshots of supposed investment opportunities, and Claire hinted that Uncle David would have wanted us all to benefit. Their greed was so transparent it almost made me laugh. Almost. Instead of answering, I sat at my desk with Uncle David's letter in front of me. His words echoed in my head. Don't let greed destroy you like it did this family. I couldn't ignore that. That man had lived through the same hypocrisy I'd grown up in, and somehow he still believed I could break the cycle. So I made a decision, not out of anger, but clarity. I spent the next few weeks researching local charities, community centers, and education programs for kids who reminded me of myself. Lost, ambitious, but unseen. I met with directors, read impact reports, and quietly started transferring funds. One by one, I gave away every cent of the inheritance. Millions gone, not wasted, but freed. By the end, I didn't own a mansion or a fleet of cars. I owned peace. When the family finally cornered me on a call, they were all talking at once, demanding updates, accusing me of hiding money, claiming legal rights. I let them talk until they ran out of breath. Then I said, calm and steady, "There's nothing to split. I donated it all." The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan broke it first, shouting, "You did what?" Claire gasped, "Are you insane?" Mom started sobbing, wailing about betrayal, and "How could you humiliate us like this?" Dad's voice was last, cold and sharp. "You'll regret this. Family doesn't forgive things like that." I took a deep breath and replied, "Good. Maybe that's the only thing we'll ever agree on." It didn't take long for the fallout to go public. The first post came from Claire, a melodramatic caption under a photo of her kids reading, "Some people forget family when greed clouds their soul." The irony nearly made me choke on my coffee. Then came Ryan's turn. Money changes people. Sad to see how success can make someone heartless. Within hours, mutual relatives and old neighbors were chiming in, commenting things like, "That's awful. Family is everything." And "How could he do that to his own parents?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because that same morning, the local paper released an article about the donation I'd made in my uncle's name. The headline read, "Tech founder honors late uncle with multi-million-dollar charity fund for underprivileged youth." The photos showed kids smiling, holding laptops, and the caption quoted me. I wanted to give others the opportunity I had to fight for alone. The comment section under that article was filled with support, people calling it inspiring, selfless, exactly what the world needs. I scrolled through hundreds of comments feeling something I hadn't in years, validation without guilt. Meanwhile, my family's posts backfired spectacularly. People started connecting the dots, replying under their pity posts with links to the news article. One comment under Ryan's said it best. "So, you're mad your brother gave to charity instead of to you?" Their online pity parade turned into a circus of embarrassment. I didn't gloat, though. I just watched. Quietly. Detached. It was like watching years of emotional manipulation unravel in real time. They'd built their image on control, and now the world was seeing them for what they really were, leeches wearing the mask of family. That night, I turned off my phone, stepped out onto my balcony and looked out over the city lights. For the first time in my life, their noise wasn't my problem anymore, but the silence didn't last. The next day, my mother showed up at my office unannounced, with tears in her eyes and fire in her voice. She arrived without warning, storming past my assistant like she owned the place. When I stepped out of my office, she was already there in the lobby, clutching her purse like it held her dignity together. Her eyes were red, her tone trembling somewhere between heartbreak and rage. "How could you do this to us?" she said. "Do you have any idea how humiliated we are?" I took a slow breath. "You mean because people finally saw who you are?" She flinched, then whispered, "We're your parents. We raised you. You owed us more than this." That word, owed, hung in the air like poison. I'd heard it all my life, but this time I didn't shrink beneath it. "You didn't raise me," I said quietly. "You tolerated me until I became useful." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You've turned into someone cruel." I stepped closer, my voice calm. "No, Mom. I turned into someone free." She begged then, real tears, shaking hands. "Please, at least come home. Your father's angry, but he just wants to talk. Maybe we can start over." For a brief second, I almost believed her. I saw the same woman who once kissed my scraped knees and told me stories before bed. But then I remembered the spreadsheet, the dinner where they tried to carve up my life like a pie. Whatever love she had for me was conditional. Always had been. "I'm not angry," I said softly, "but I'm done." She stared at me like she didn't understand the words. Like done wasn't something children said to their mothers. I walked her to the door, handed her a small envelope with old family photos I'd kept. "I'm returning what was yours," I said. "Memories. The only thing you ever gave me that wasn't a demand." She left in silence, and when the doors closed behind her, I felt something lift off my chest, a weight I'd been carrying for 3 decades. But healing isn't quiet. The storm always leaves debris behind, and mine came the next morning in the form of my father. My father didn't call this time. He came in person. The next morning, my receptionist's voice cracked over the intercom. "Sir, your father's here." He stood in the doorway like a shadow from another life. Jaw clenched, eyes filled with the kind of disappointment that used to crush me. But not anymore. He didn't wait for an invitation. "Do you feel proud of yourself?" he snapped. "You've shamed this family. Your mother's been crying for days." I leaned against my desk, keeping my tone even. "She's crying because people found out the truth." "The truth?" he barked. "The truth is, you spat in the faces of the people who made you who you are." That sentence almost made me laugh. "You didn't make me who I am, Dad. You just showed me everything I never want to be." His face twisted with anger. "You think you're better than us now?" "No," I said quietly. "Just different. And that's enough." He stared at me for a long moment, breathing hard, then shook his head and muttered, "You'll die alone." I met his gaze. "Maybe. But at least I'll die honest." He didn't reply. He just turned and left, slamming the door behind him, like he was sealing the past out for good. That night, I sat on my balcony again, the same place where I'd watched my family's meltdown unfold. The city lights glowed below, distant and peaceful. I thought about Uncle David, how he'd trusted me to make the right choice, and for the first time, I believed I had. Months passed. The charity in my uncle's name flourished. Kids who'd never touched a computer were now building apps, winning scholarships, changing their lives. I visited one of the schools, and a little boy ran up to me, grinning, saying, "One day, I want to be like you." I smiled, realizing something profound. I hadn't lost a family. I'd built a new one from the ashes of the old, and for the first time in my life, I felt whole.